It was supposed to be a few weeks of fun. 5 college friends, Emma, Daniel, Jason, Lily, and Ryan, found what they thought was the perfect getaway. A half-built gray structure on the edge of town. No paint, no furniture, just raw concrete and open space. It was an adventure, a story in the making. Cheap, quiet, and a chance to forge memories they'd never forget. They were right about that last part, but for all the wrong reasons. Because after the third night, the laughter died, replaced by a silence that was far more terrifying than any noise. It started with Emma. She woke up around 2 in the morning to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. They weren't normal footsteps. They were slow, heavy, dragging, as if something was being pulled along the concrete floor. She called out, thinking it was one of her friends. "Dan? Is that you?" Silence. The only reply was the echoing of her own voice. Mustering her courage, she peeked out of the room. The corridor was empty, bathed in the cold moonlight. But something was there. A trail of muddy footprints led halfway up the unfinished staircase, and then just stopped, vanished into thin air. The next morning, nobody believed her. Ryan laughed it off. "You were dreaming, Em," Jason, ever the pragmatist, suggested it was just a stray dog. Only Daniel was quiet, his eyes fixed on that staircase for a long, unsettling moment. A few nights later, it was Lily's turn. She woke up suddenly, gasping, the air in the room feeling thick and heavy. That's when she heard it. A faint, muffled whisper, seemingly coming from the very wall next to her mattress. She pressed her ear against the cold cement. The whisper grew clearer, more distinct, repeating the same chilling phrase over and over. "You shouldn't have stayed. You shouldn't have stayed." Her scream ripped through the silence, waking everyone. Flashlights cut through the darkness, but there was nothing. Just a long, thin crack in the wall, looking disturbingly like a crooked smile. They packed their bags, ready to leave, but Jason talked them down. "It's just wind, guys. Let's not overreact." And so, against their better judgment, they stayed. The next night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., Ryan was woken by a strange sound, a rhythmic hammering. Metal striking concrete, slow and steady. He crept towards the unfinished living room, his heart pounding. Through the empty window frame, he saw a figure. A tall, thin shadow, bent over, hammering something into the floor. Ryan's voice was barely a whisper. "Hey, who's there?" The hammering stopped. The shadow slowly, unnaturally turned its head towards him. Where a face should have been, there was only smooth, pale, featureless skin. Ryan dropped his flashlight and scrambled back to the others. When they all returned, the figure was gone. All that remained was a rusted hammer lying on the ground. Carved into its handle were the words, "Property of M. Carter, 1997. A quick search online confirmed their worst fears. The construction site had been abandoned for almost 30 years. There was no record of a worker named M. Carter. They huddled together that night, too terrified to be alone. Just after midnight, Jason started mumbling in his sleep. They're inside the walls. They never left. Emma tried to wake him, but his eyes were wide open, staring blankly at the cracked wall. "It's not a wall," he whispered, his voice sounding hollow, distant. "It's a door." Before anyone could react, he grabbed a loose brick and smashed it against the crack. The plaster gave way, revealing a dark, hollow space. A foul, gut-wrenching smell poured out. Inside, illuminated by their trembling flashlights, were bones. Human bones. And next to them, an old construction helmet with the name M. Carter scratched into the side. The worker hadn't just disappeared. He'd been buried alive. And they had just desecrated his tomb. They would leave at sunrise. That was the plan. But the house had other ideas. The air grew impossibly cold. The generator sputtered and died, plunging them into total darkness. And then the footsteps returned. Slow scraping, coming right for their room. They stopped just outside the door. A tall, dust-covered figure filled the doorway, a hammer in its hand. As it raised its head, they saw a face of cracked concrete and a mouth sealed shut. But a voice screamed inside their minds, a voice of pure rage. "You broke my wall." The lights flickered. The figure vanished. When the light stabilized, the wall behind them was smooth, perfectly sealed, and Jason was gone. When police arrived, they found 4 friends in shock, unable to form a coherent sentence. When a rescue team finally broke down that wall, they found 2 skeletons. One old, one recent. Both were clutching a hammer. And from the depths of the structure, a faint whisper seemed to echo through the concrete. "You shouldn't have stayed."